GUI's log, pod date 9427.0. I don't actually know what the star dates are on the
Just
show.
come up with some random numbers there.
Yeah, I don't know what a star date exactly is, and like how to, like what today's star date would actually be. That's too far for me to know. But hey, it's GUI here from Flashback 64. We got another Trek log special for everybody. I'm joined by my co-host McKenna.
Hello.
We are, of course, joined by our good pal Adrielle. Hello.
Yo, that's me, and I'm here, and I'm so pleased to be here and to be talking about Star Trek yet again. I'm growing in my knowledge and fandom.
Thank you. Yeah, it's good to have you along. It's good to just be watching some classic episodes of Star Trek. We've been watching a lot together. It's been fun. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so today we've got a special. We're talking about Worf today. We've got a special slate of Worf eps. McKenna, you like Worf? You like Worf or Data?
Probably Worf.
Okay.
Yeah,
me too.
There's
honestly,
more
actually.
history with Worf. He's got a longer run.
True. Much more. I would guess much more screen time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
although Data gets some bigger spots at times, but
yeah, I was gonna say the sort of standalone Data episodes felt very complete, but I can see how there's probably not a whole lot else besides those, whereas Worf feels like a deep well of society and personal trauma and various unfurling futures about what's going to happen to him, whereas Data feels a bit more self-contained in a way.
yeah. I'm curious. I guess we'll get into it when we talk about the episodes we're talking about, but I feel like I don't know. I don't know if there's much consensus. I think most of these episodes are, like a lot of the Worf storylines and stuff are pretty popular. But I've also heard people say like, "Oh, I don't really like the like Klingon politics stuff." So I guess it would be interesting to hear what you think when we get into it. I guess this is also kind of your crash course on like Klingons, which is kind of. I'm sure you're aware of like the concept of Klingons, at least from
I'm
pop culture.
Not at all. I've seen a Klingon, but that's it. I didn't know anything about them being like a warring kind of. I didn't know anything about their culture or personalities or whatever. So it was a crash course indeed. I really came in totally blind. Yeah,
but that's something like I feel like people hear about like that's like a nerdy language, right? That people know that's like an easy signifier of like someone who's nerdy is like, oh,
I speak fluent Klingon.
Speak fluent Klingon. Yeah,
yeah, that's true.
Duolingo has it.
Duolingo has Klingon.
Wait, really?
Mm-hmm.
That's a real thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Klingons, Klingons is like, it's kind of an interesting thing because it wasn't really like now you shows and stuff will have like linguists or whatever come in, like Game of Thrones had someone like develop a whole like language or whatever for the show. Like a lot of stuff, you'll get that a lot now. Whereas Klingon, it does exist that way now, but I believe okay. Little backstory. I believe the way this came about as more of a developed language was in the animated series, of which James Doohan, who plays Scotty in Star Trek, a lot of the main cast, him in particular, did a lot of additional voices of characters on the show, and I think he's credited as like coming up with some of the first Klingon language, and I think it might. This is just my guess. I think it's probably because they were just like, you say some alien stuff here. And so he just, that's my guess is what happened. I'm sure it's better documented, but Anyway, so we kind of have him to thank, but I think it's then since then been like developed into like this like bigger language, and you know what? Good on you if you've learned how to speak it, but that's too much for me.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to have a lot of practical applications apart from maybe watching the episodes and fact checking if the Klingon and the subtitles are lined up correctly. I'm not really sure.
I will often see I'll see like posters at like restaurants or whatever of like a local theater group doing like Shakespeare and Klingon and stuff like that. Have you seen that?
I think I might have seen that like once or twice.
Okay, and they like make jokes like that in Star Trek where they're like, oh, it's much better in its original Klingon. Like they'll talk about some classic literature or whatever. Does that happen? That might happen in one of these. Oh, it happened in the Data episode when they were saying goodbye to Data or whatever. Worf has like a line like that. So anyway, Klingon. Okay, it's a big thing you're learning about here. Maybe this will come out through the conversations of the episodes, but when I started to watch it, I was like, I don't think this is going to be like. It's obviously this is like one of the weirdest, like geekiest things we've seen, but I'm pretty sure this is all like actually straightforward, you know what I mean? But I was kind of nervous, like I feel like this is a bigger like leap, suspension of disbelief, you know, like another level over like, yeah, that this dude they painted white as a robot. This is like we're doing dramatic like theater courtroom stuff with these guys with goofy like heads on or whatever. So
yeah. I think that the progression of episodes worked very well that you had picked, and I think that I would like to, well, especially after watching all of the Data, or you know, the collection of Data episodes and also the collection of the Worf episodes, I now feel like I want to, especially with Worf and and Klingon society in general, I feel now like I want to, I'm literate enough to like pick up on these things that will enrich this whole deeper story or deeper like narrative in all the other episodes, because thematically a lot of these episodes about Worf were sort of similar, which made it very easy for me to like pick up on like what was going on and to like get it. Like you didn't have to send me a lot of background or like, you know, there were no real holes to fill other, like he just made it very clear sort of like what he was struggling with throughout this trajectory. So I found it easy to insert myself.
Okay, and I think we'll talk about it in this the first episode, but I guess props to it because I think it does a good job of laying it all out, like, you know, a lot of what you need to know. So this is a 5 episode, so we're gonna this is still gonna be a normal episode length, so like at least in my mind. So we're gonna try to, you know, some things might be left unsaid, but I think we'll do okay. Okay, let's just do it. So enough talking, let's do it.
Okay, wait, I'm sorry. Now I have one thing that I wanted to ask.
Oh, yeah. Oh God, go ahead.
Sorry, I saw you really winding up for it. Is Worf our first real introduction to Klingon? When did Klingons come into the series at large?
Okay, yeah.
Just sort of just a little background about that, because I feel like I understand it in the context of this show's ecosystem, but perhaps not of the entire series.
Okay, I thought this might come. McKenna, do you want to explain?
No, I think you should explain.
Okay. I always want to put it on you because I was like, we explained this. McKenna's like now seen a lot of Trek, but it's still relatively new. And I'm like the most experienced, but I feel like I'm not like a crazy Trekkie, so I'm like worried about saying something wrong. But yeah, so the Klingons, yes, they were kind of a major antagonist, I guess, in the original series. Like, there's probably only, you know, there's like 3 seasons of the original series, and there's probably like, I don't know. There's not that many episodes generally, but them actually being a reoccurring antagonist like is more so than a lot of episodes. So I think they kind of loomed large because they were in some iconic episodes in the original series. Mm-hmm. Three notable ones, which someday we will watch actually, for a very cool reason. But anyway. So yeah, they showed up a couple times in the original series, at least once per season, if not some other references. And then of course they were in the animated series as well. But you actually have seen their first appearance, like the way they look like now in TNG, because that opening scene of the motion picture, they get the Klingon ship gets destroyed by V'ger or whatever. And
V'ger. Love V'ger.
V'ger. Miss you, V'ger.
R.I.P.
Whereas in the original series, they were kind of just like, they were usually like guys, they like some they would just put in like blackface or like give them a funny mustache, or sometimes it was just like, this is just an Irish guy, it seems like, but he's Klingon. Like they were just like they're guys. So they kind of when it came time for the movie, I'm sure they want to do a lot more with their alien designs, but oftentimes there's like a budget, and I think with the movie they're like, ooh, like let's we can really come up with like a cool concept for their look, and so that's where that came from. But so in the original series they were sort of this, and they're an enemy to the Federation. They're sort of like a lot of episodes with them there would be sort of like a Cold War kind of vibe, with them. And so that's what, with Worf and with their alliance in TNG, they kind of start off like they used to be at war, but now they sort of have a loose alliance. Yeah. That was sort of signaling, like that was very of the era of like Cold War, like some of the like connections between the US and the Soviet Union at the time, so they were kind of like drawing from that, which is perfect because I think Star Trek is often about like trying to bring people together, so I think that's always going to happen. As we've been watching with some shows, like that's like a theme they like to hit upon a lot. So
next time on Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Come on, let's go!
The crew rescues Klingon fugitives from a war-torn ship.
Captain wants those two taken into custody.
But these warriors have deadly motives.
Join us.
Now, a sinister plot puts Worf's loyalties to the test.
He has a phaser aimed directly at the dilithium crystal chamber.
Brother, we have a chance!
On Star Trek: The Next Generation.
We good? Is that a good Klingon explainer?
It's good for me.
We're caught up? Okay.
Okay, now you can proceed with the you can do the wind up again for the episodes. I just wanted to make sure that I was caught up on the whole context.
So yeah, they we'll learn more. We learn kind of how they became peaceful or like more allied with the Federation. But we'll get into that in a little bit. Let's talk about our first episode in our bunch, Heart of Glory, which is TNG Season 1, Episode 20. It aired March 21st, 1988. The story is by Maurice Hurley, Herbert Wright, and DC Fontana. We talked about Maurice Hurley a little bit in the last episode. He was kind of the main producer in the early years of the show. Mm-hmm. He wrote Data Lore.
I remember.
Herbert Wright wrote like the first 2 episodes, and that featured the Ferengi, which you don't know, but he's kind of viewed as like the creator of the Ferengi. I realize we're gonna have to. I don't really love McKenna the Ferengi in TNG, but we might have to like do a Ferengi primer before Deep Space Nine, right?
Yeah, they're not in too many. I only remember like a couple episodes of Ferengi.
Yeah,
and they're not really in this.
Yeah, there's maybe like like under 10. Over 5 under 10 is my guess. But anyway, he wrote this episode. He wrote like, I think he had the story idea, and then Maurice Hurley and DC Fontana, I think, turned it into a script. I don't know exactly, but DC Fontana is a writing legend. She worked on the original series. When she was 27, she was the youngest story editor in Hollywood at the time. So she wrote 10 episodes of the original series, 1 episode of the animated series. She wrote 5 early episodes of TNG and 1 episode of Deep Space Nine. And she actually was nominated for a Hugo Award for the pilot of Next Gen. So legend, we love it. And the episode was directed by Rob Bowman. We talked about him in the last episode. He did Data Lore and Elementary, My Dear Data. And he's done directed 13 episodes of Star Trek. I know I'm just kind of like, a lot of credits, but these people are, a lot of these people are very cool, and I want to...
They're legends. They're legendary.
It's also fun on a show like this that's got like a, there's almost like a factory-like quality to how they make... They got to produce like so many episodes that it's like there is some... You can like pick out the ones made by certain people and like they leave their mark on them, so... I really like to point that out. So I got this image prepared for you, McKenna, but we'll get into that.
For me.
Well, yeah, I think it'd be fun, but I'll hold that off for now. So, okay, we're here. Heart of Glory. McKenna, what... You watched it today, sort of.
Yeah.
Again. What's the big idea in this episode? You have to like do every moment to moment. What's it really about?
So the Enterprise finds this abandoned Ferengi ship that appears to have been engaged in battle in the neutral zone.
The neutral zone.
Neutral zone explainer.
No, the neutral. It's like a you get the idea. The neutral zone. It's.
I feel like the name just sort of carried the enough weight for me to like understand what was going on.
If something gets fucked there, it's like a Cuban Missile Crisis type situation.
Exactly.
So they gotta be careful.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they transport. They send an away team to the ship to see what's going on there, and they discover 3 Klingon survivors on board, who they bring back to the Enterprise, and they're trying to figure out why that only 3 Klingons survived on this Ferengi ship. And the Klingons try to say that we're better equipped, we're better at battling, so we convinced the captain to let us take charge, and everybody else died.
Yeah.
And not us.
Likely story.
Yeah. So they're kind of being shown around by Worf, and throughout like the beginning of the episode, they're kind of like egging him on, like, are you really like Klingon?
Yeah.
And then shortly after, a Klingon ship comes that's part of the Federation, and they're like, these guys are on the run, and they're our prisoners. We want you to transport them aboard. Worf doesn't want that because he's like, they're just gonna execute them. And he wants them to go by Federation standard. And so after the Klingons find out that they're set to be transported, they find out their real the real reason why this ship has been destroyed, and it's that these Klingons are against the Federation alliance. They miss the days of old and the like battle culture.
Let's get
of
it going.
The Klingons.
Yeah.
At first, they try to convince Worf to like join them and separate the Enterprise, the disc,
Yeah, you don't know that, but you can separate the disc from the rest of the ship
two parts.
and fly away, yeah.
It seemed like a big deal when it happened. It seemed like a huge production.
That's something you would get from the Hugo nominated pilot, where they show that can happen. But sorry.
I actually did see that because I started watching the pilot after I was done watching these because I was like, well, now I feel like I want to go back to the beginning, but I didn't finish it. But I watched last night just up until after the disc got separated, and I was like, okay, I get it now.
Okay, all right. Well, yeah. What's the ending? You've done a great job, honestly.
This
is an incredible plot synopsis. Honestly, off the
I'm
top.
not kidding.
This is not prepared or anything, and yeah, I'm impressed.
Much better than I would have done.
Yeah. So, Worf requests to talk with the Klingon captain. And he talks it out, but the Klingon captain is still like, we're gonna do things our way.
Mm-hmm.
So the runaway Klingon guys, they kind of bust out and are ready to start, or are ready to fight.
Mm-hmm.
I guess one of them is killed.
Yes.
So they got one left that's just ready to wait it out.
Yeah, he's gonna blast the warp core or whatever. He kind of has
goes
them all
to
hostage
the engine room. Yeah, and they're trying to figure out what to do, and Worf is just like, this guy is gonna want to fight. Like, he's not gonna wait it out forever.
Mm-hmm.
So Worf goes to confront him, and
so good.
He tries to talk it out. He tries to convince him, but this guy's just not having it. He's like, we're Klingons, or we gotta battle, and he's like, you're no Klingon to Worf. And then Worf shoots him.
Worf
he just
kills him.
Gives him what he wants.
Yeah.
Which is a big deal if you kill someone. I think if someone dies, that's a big deal.
Yeah, it really it took a lot for that to get to escalate to that point.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was a really succinct and just it's such I think this story is really well written, because just listening to you recount it, I'm like, yeah, but then what happened? Oh, shit. The escalation, everything is really, really well done. But Adrielle, for you, I guess compared to Data Lore, how was this? This was sort of our Worf version of Data Lore, which is it's still delivering you a lot of exposition on his backstory and stuff like that. So how was it?
I was going to say that this one, I think, is the most complicated of all of 5 of the ones that we watched for this, in my opinion, because it's Klingon versus Klingon versus Klingon in all these different iterations where you're like, okay, we don't know who to believe. Well, we clearly don't believe them because they are being shady. And then, so they're these fugitives, and they are sort of attracted to Worf because, he's a Klingon, and they're sort of, they're intrigued by him, and they're sort of baiting him or whatever, but they're also clearly bonded by this innate Klingon, I don't know if it's bloodlust or what we would call it, but when one of them dies and then they all roar, and then they're kin. They're clearly kin, even though Worf, as we learn, is so disconnected from his roots in a way. And so it's you see throughout this episode that Worf is sort of trying to deal with what it actually means to be a Klingon, and what they would want, he's it's a better death to be, or it's a better fate, to have to kill him in like a sort of honorable way than to just like have him sent off to like the gallows or whatever the equivalent of that is. So I feel like this episode of all 5 was the most complex, even though it wasn't really directly about Worf. Worf was sort of like watching and trying to like take in this whole drama that was on this Klingon drama that he was embroiled in kind of by proxy. So, yeah. I can't even compare it to Data Lore, I don't think.
That's kind of his MO often, though, is he's like involved in all these situations that it's like that are almost, they're like, the final episode is also kind of like unrelated. Like it's related to him just because they like need a guy. So I always find that weird. It's like he's having to like brush up against them, like even though it doesn't seem like a priority of his. Like he wants to be accepted, I think, by both societies, right? But
yeah, well, it seems like that to me, that he's constantly in the, like, he's not really in the middle. He is both, which again like comes up a lot in another episode that we watch. But like he's I'm constant. Well, as I was watching these, I was like, how much like about being a Klingon is innate? You know, how much of it is like in your blood, and how much of it is taught and or like accepted as your reality because that's the society that you live in. I don't know, and I feel like this episode in particular, that dissonance was very stark, because he was like, I don't like you, but I think you deserve this thing, and I also want to go by the protocols, you know. And so it's less about him kind of thinking like, where do I fit in, and more about like kind of jockeying with the weird societal and also like innate Klingon stuff. It's complicated, but it was really well written. It was very well written.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is where we get his backstory. That is, his family died when he was young, and he was adopted by humans. So
yeah, that's
how he grew up with. He's humans.
From like Russia or something.
But you can see like he knows Klingon customs and culture. Very well, like. But it's in a lot of instances he kind of comes off as more human, not as, you know, human, but like someone who's studied and knows a lot about Klingons, but isn't quite a part of their culture.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Like he definitely feels like out of step with Klingons, but he also feels a little out of step with humans a lot of the time. He follows, you see him following, you know, Starfleet regulations very well. He's a top tier officer, and he wants to conduct himself in a way that is honorable by Klingon standards as well.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, I think he still feels like uncomfortable in both contexts, and you see him, he's a little self-conscious about it, although he tries to hide it a little. You know, you see him, he gets like grumpy.
Yeah.
And that's that always feels like, you know, him trying to control the Klingon temper a little bit.
Mm.
He does get grumpy. It's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, I like that it's like, he almost at times, we'll see it more so, like has a more, because he has like kind of he really seems to believe in like the ideals, like both like he seems like Federation and Klingon or whatever. But what's interesting, like, because like what he thinks about like Klingon ideals, we'll see in practice like are much different, which is like often how we encounter like in our, you know, real life. You know, there's like a contradiction between what our society says we value and what we actually do. And that's what I really like about Klingon stories in general. That's less of a story here, but I think that's what I guess makes Worf interesting to me, is that he often thinks of Klingons more highly than like people who live in the Klingon Empire, you know what I mean? Like where they're more like cynical or whatever. It'd be like, I guess, if someone just like just read about like all the cool stuff about like the founding fathers or whatever, but didn't live in America, and they're like, man, America must be so cool. Like they really believe in freedom and stuff like that, you know? Totally,
yeah. In practice, it's a little different, yeah.
But yeah, it's a great story. I want to shout out Captain Chorus, the actor. I thought he was awesome in this episode. Vaughn Armstrong is the actor, and he has played 12 different characters in 4 Star Trek series. 28 episodes he's appeared in.
Oh my God, Vaughn!
McKenna, I don't know if you know him, but I have this picture prepared for you to look at, and you can confirm that he's played some pretty cool characters in different episodes. So none Adrielle would know, but McKenna can confirm that I'm not lying here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you get all kinds of different looking aliens, it's easy to just be like, hey, this actor, you want to come back and play a different alien?
That's so awesome.
Or sometimes the same alien.
Sometimes it's just be like, you want to look exactly the same, but you're a different guy? Whatever, who cares?
Yeah, who cares? Doesn't matter.
So yeah, Vaughn Armstrong, legend, love him. One brief thing I wanted to mention, even though it's not a big thing in the episode, it really is in the beginning, is we get that like extended part with Geordi's visor scene.
Yes.
Where they're like looking around.
I believe I texted you and I was like, I want to know more about Geordi, because that part I was like, that is wild, because Picard is going like, is this what you see like all the time? Is that like, what is that blob? Oh, that blob is Data. Oh, that blob is whatever. It's just, and it like looks incredible. It looks so cool.
Those actors were played by their body doubles when they shot those parts. Yeah. So that's why they look a little weird too. So
that's awesome. Yeah. I was like, that's just so wild that I just this like weird, piece of lore that's like dropped in. It's just that like, because Geordi always wears the visor, and they're all seeing for the first time like what he's seeing, and it was like, and it looked so beautiful and crazy. So then I was like, I want to know more about him, but apparently there's not as much as some of the other characters. Sadly,
it's tough. Well, I'm sure we'll broach it someday, but there's. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
I feel like a lot of his episodes are just like Data episodes because they're buddies.
I know, and I love that about them. It's so cute.
Or he gets friend zoned. Like that's like the other
Data Geordi plot.
There's a weird line. Like I guess this could be interesting if they explored like what he really meant, or like what you're thinking, like what it would be like to be someone who sees all these things at once. But I thought it was kind of lazy writing a little bit, where Picard goes like, now I'm beginning to understand him. And it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Let's zero in on that a little bit more. But
I like that he sees androids with an aura.
Yeah.
Like,
you don't see that?
That's just me.
I know. It's so awesome. It's so cool. That's why he's such buddies with Data. It's so cute.
So you did have me thinking about this with what you're saying, Adrielle. I think about this a lot. There's definitely a lot, and I feel like we're in the realm of sci-fi, so you can do this. It's fine. But there is like a bit of a how much like what kind of race science is going on here with the Klingons? They talk about like these urges they have, and I do often think about that. Like, well, this could be a perfect like metaphor for like how they're raised. They believe these things are innate. Worf shows that they can be different. And I think that's good. Like, that's kind of the point of the story. It's like, no, it's not just inherent to Klingons, like, that they're, like, violent, and it's not just, like, in their blood, but they can still show, like, those scenes. Some of those scenes are awesome, where they're like, Worf, do you hear it? The calls at night. Oh, I love that shit. It's so hard. But Trek will also then veer into the realms of, like, well, actually, like, my Klingon side of me makes me all angry or whatever. And I guess that can be a metaphor too, but there are episodes where they make it very literal, like scientific, the Klingon part of this person has come out and it's like acting all angry or whatever. So I don't know where I stand with that, but I think it's a good, it's a good storytelling device, like the different alien cultures representing different aspects of humanity, essentially. Like I said, I love the final scene where he talks to him. There's there's some super hard line that Worf says right before he kills him. What does he say?
He does. I can't remember what it is.
I literally I guess I heard it a few hours ago, but
yeah, I don't remember. But it goes so hard.
The IMDb quotes.
It could be on Memory Alpha, but there's cool stuff here. You mentioned the death ritual. Very sweet.
Oh, is this where this isn't the same? I think it's later on when he's talking to or at the end of the episode, he's talking to the Klingon captain, and the Klingon captain is like, "Oh, we'd love to have you on the crew."
Oh yeah.
And he's like, "Oh yeah." And then, like, Picard and Riker are all worried that Worf is gonna leave, and Worf is like, "Oh, I was just being polite.
I won't actually leave. It was so cute."
There is serious tension in the episode at times. I think Worf might, like, go with them, and I'm like,
yeah,
damn, like, have some faith in Worf here.
There's also, talking about the different aliens. What I was thinking when you were talking about that, in the next episode that we get into, which is it feels like a very natural extension of this one, in many ways. But then there's that other alien that's on the ship, and I don't know exactly what that is what part of humanity that is supposed to be, because I
nerds,
just nerds, I guess, kind of hapless, like lame
nerds.
Yeah. Although I thought he was supposed to be really evil, but anyway, we can get into that too. But I was thinking about that as I was sitting here. It's just like, I wonder what that weird guy was what part of humanity he was supposed to represent.
Next time on Star Trek: The Next Generation.
I've been assigned to serve this ship and to obey your orders.
Commander Riker joins the Klingons and is faced with a deadly decision.
I intend to attack the Enterprise and destroy it.
He must battle his own crew to survive.
I order you to lower your shields and surrender.
Prepare to attack!
On Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Let's move along. Let's talk about A Matter of Honor. TNG Season 2, Episode 8, from February 6, 1989. Story by Wanda Height, Gregory Amos, and Burton Amos, and directed by Rob Bowman, once again. You mentioned we can talk about him now, because it's not really that big of a deal, but there's the Mendon or whatever, the fucking dorky ass vaping alien or whatever.
He is vaping or whatever he's doing.
John Putsch played him, and he previously played a character of the same race named Mordock. You haven't seen that episode, but that's what that whole scene was with Wesley, where he's like, "Hey, Mordock," and the guy's like, "I'm Mendon."
Yes, and it's the same guy.
These guys never come back. Their race appears here and there, especially now in the Lower Decks era. They revitalize a lot of these kind of forgotten ones, but not important to the episode. I mean, he's important to the plot, but yeah. Anyway, I have less like notes about this one because it's I think it's a more of an expansion on like learning about Klingon culture. There is sort of a plot, but I don't know, McKenna, do you want to say like the basic gist here?
Yeah, I think this one kind of has a more like a quick summary.
Yeah.
Basically they've got like an officer exchange program
Great idea.
going on.
Love
Yeah,
that.
this is wild, and this comes back in another episode that we watched. The whole idea of an officer exchange program is so crazy to me. But continue.
Yeah, so that's what the nerdy guy is here for. But also, also Picard is like, we want to do that with a Klingon ship because, like, wouldn't that be crazy? And
that's pretty out there.
And Riker's like, oh, I am the man for the job.
Yeah.
I knew you were gonna like this, Adrielle, because I was like, we're gonna have some Riker. Yeah,
there's a lot of
Riker
Riker
plot.
in these episodes.
Yeah. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, so while Picard is telling him about it, they're like gaming, which is
yeah, they have like target
I
practice.
don't want to mention that. Yeah.
Yeah. They're in like not in VR, but they kind of are like what I would want to be in, like a laser tag VR situation. It's pretty tight.
Shit is so awesome. Yeah.
So Riker's gonna go on a Klingon ship. He does a little prep by having a Klingon feast.
All the foods,
all delicious Klingon
Gach.
delicacies.
That's the one everyone always remembers. Yeah.
Yes. So then he goes to the ship. He's just the first officer on there now. He has to act, in accordance with Klingon command standards.
He's got to fit in.
One of the first things that happens on this Klingon ship is one of the other Klingons is like distrustful of him, and on a Klingon ship, it's like normal for if you don't like your leadership, you could just attack them and take their position.
You have to kill them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is cool. I respect that. Yeah.
Yeah. But Riker is prepared. He does not get killed.
Nope.
So he maintains his position.
And he gains the other guy's respect, which I really like.
Yeah, these guys become buddies.
Yes.
You see them shortly after, actually eating together. He's eating the real Klingon food this time.
Mm-hmm.
And the Klingons are all kind of teasing him. And he encounters the Gok again, but in its proper Klingon form.
Alive.
Still alive.
Hell yeah.
So, meanwhile, back on the Enterprise, the nerd alien,
I'm falling asleep already at the nerd thinking about this guy.
he's like discovered something on the Klingon ship, and he's trying to figure out what it is. And he's like conducting some scans, and they're having some difficulties there because the alien is kind of going by standards that he is used to, even though he's supposed to be going by Starfleet standards. So there's some conflict
It's
there.
not communicating.
But yeah, the important part is that they're scanning the Klingon ship, which the Klingons discover, and the captain just immediately thinks that they're scanning because they want to attack.
Mm-hmm.
And Riker tries to talk him down from that, like, oh no, that this is a Starfleet ship, like they're not going to do that. But the captain doesn't believe him, and they have kind of a the captain's like, are you going to stand with us? Like, you took an oath to go down with this ship. And Riker's like, yeah, but I won't. I also took an oath to the Federation, and I won't go back on that either. Which the captain respects him for that. He's like, I would have killed you if you'd given up their secrets.
Oh my
Yeah. He was like, that was a test and you passed.
Yeah, so the Enterprise is, coming after the Klingon ship. They're trying to help the Klingon ship. The Klingon ship thinks they're trying to destroy them, and Riker's kind of going along with it for a while, kind of advising them on the best way to proceed. And eventually, as the Enterprise approaches, Riker pulls out his little
oh yeah, Data gave him a thing.
Transporter thing,
emergency transport thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They slip Data into all the eps because he's such a they love Data, so he's always
Data
gonna
rules.
have a fun little part. Yeah,
Data rules.
So the captain thinks it's a weapon, and he's like, "Give it to me." And I guess the Enterprise, they get close, and the Klingons are preparing to attack, and the Enterprise is like, "What's going on?" And they're worried about Riker, so they want to transport him back, and they do. Well, they activate the transporter, but the Klingon captain, shows up on the Enterprise, and Riker takes over command of the Klingon ship.
and he kind of dominates the rest of the situation,
Yeah.
And it's a great. I like him and Picard. They're dealing with each other. It's quite fun.
Yeah,
It's a great moment when Riker comes up on the view screen.
Yes,
I am the captain now.
It's so awesome.
That is a line in the show. That's not just me.
I am the captain now. It's so awesome.
So yeah, Adrielle, what'd you think of this episode?
This one, there were so many little details that I really liked. One is the alien that we don't have to keep talking about, but I was convinced that he was going to play a much bigger role than he did because he was so off-putting and seemed so evil and hapless at the same time. He's just a nerd who is doing everything wrong. Whereas I thought that perhaps he was smarter, that he had ulterior motives and that's why he kept fucking up so bad. But it turns out he just wasn't following protocol or whatever. So he was a bit feckless by the end of it. But I liked the addition of him because he was insane to look at, and he was he had a little vape machine in front of him, and that was cool. And I also really liked the food. I just wanted to throw out that watching all the Klingon food was some of my favorite parts of this whole thing, which again, in a later episode, there's a Klingon eating human food, and that's also crazy to watch.
It's such a this is what I love. Star Trek is so fun.
Yeah.
When it's good, it's fun, and it's because it's such a funny but casual but also relatable moment where Riker is just in 10 forward and he's got all the food. And his coworkers are coming up and being like, "Whoa, you're eating all this nasty stuff!" And he's making a scene out of it, and it's just so it's so I don't know. I love you love those little moments of the characters, just kind of that's why I didn't write much for the plot because a lot of this is just seeing the way the characters all kind of interact and get along and. That's the good stuff.
Moment to moment kind of thing. Yeah, and seeing that the food was because when they would zoom in on it, I wanted to pause and look at it all, but it's all just weird ingredients and stuff. None of it is it's all just octopus and weird pieces of seaweed and mushrooms and other kinds of organic materials that just don't go together and are presented in a totally fucked up way. So it's it's just fun to think about the prop stylists who were okay,
that is fun
because they just were come up with something. I'm sure I don't think there was a lot of direction. They were just put together some nasty Klingon food, and that's what they came up with when they went to the grocery store or whatever.
Yeah.
So I loved that. I wanted to shout out the food. And I also, this was when I started to, after the the previous episode, this is when I started to really feel like I was understanding the Klingons a little bit more. And I think part of it was because the Klingons were sort of like unified as opposed to the previous episode where it was like, yeah, Klingon versus Klingon versus Klingon.
Oh, yeah.
And so I started to kind of understand them. And then I realized that there are also lady Klingons. How fun. I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if they were like Gorons or like, you know, Gimli dwarfs where it's just like we don't really know there. So I got to see the lady Klingons and got to learn about the food, and I loved the whole thing about if you don't agree with your superior, you just attack them, because I think I have been in like work situations where I feel like they operate on a similar way, and it actually is like it's been sort of helpful in like a lot of my situations I've been in where they're just like, I don't like the way you're doing that, and then they just deal with it, and then it's like over and done with. And there's something about
they didn't kill them though.
No, they didn't kill them. No physical violence that I was privy to. Although I suppose I can't know for sure, but like, I don't know, I feel like I really respect what they're trying to do here, which is like, yeah, if you're gonna talk shit, then just say it to my face, you know. And I liked it. I just thought like I understood them. I got them a little bit more.
Oh, that's good.
And I love Riker. And
yeah, he's great in this episode.
He's really good in this episode, and I like the like captain to captain sort of thing. And I liked that this one wasn't really about Worf.
No. I was more like, this is good cool. Klingon shit, though.
It's really good. I feel like I started to like, again, yeah, that was when I really understood the Klingon stuff. And
also the exchange program comes back into play later, right?
It does.
It's like,
it's so, what a strange conceit that the writers were like, okay, now I'm going to float this idea, but what do you guys think about an exchange program? It's like so, there's no equivalent of that besides like a foreign exchange program for like students, which is not the same thing. Yeah. The thought of just like sending your coworker off to like a different job just for fun is like so funny to me.
That's like maybe there's something they do at my job where they'll send like if you're a manager in certain positions, like you for like once a week every year have to go work at like another store.
Really?
Yeah. And I could see it being like useful, maybe like
sure.
And here it's like intercultural, so like I definitely see the value of it, but so we have to shout out the guy the Klingon guy he like kind of befriends here. I don't know why I wrote Brian Johnson down there. His name is Brian Thompson, the actor who plays him. Clag is the Klingon's name, classic Klingon name right there. Absolute legend Brian Thompson is. He's made 5 appearances in Star Trek, but he's also known for Terminator, X-Files. He's in Buffy. And for our purposes, he is also the villain in Mortal Kombat Annihilation.
Oh, so hell yeah!
Maybe he's in a ton of stuff. He's just iconic character actor. You know him from Buffy, yeah? Because he's kind of the villain, right? In the early, he was in the first season. I remember.
Which
I forgot the character's name, but he's a vampire. Well, okay, we'll look him up later.
He's a vampire in Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
He's one of the baddies.
Does he get slayed?
I don't even remember. Anyway, he's there. He's great. Him and Riker are great. And then you mentioned, there are lady Klingons, and they are DTF with Riker.
They're so funny, and they're just goofing on him, and they're like, I guess even though he's not attractive, I'll do it. It's so funny. That's again a line from the episode. It's like, he's not attractive, but I'll do it.
I will, yeah.
So funny. So
funny.
funny.
I don't know anything else, McKenna, about this episode before we go to the next one. It's just a good time.
I was just thinking I love the contrast between the nerd alien like like he did not understand the assignment to Riker, who's like he understood the assignment.
Yeah. That's how he's got
so
more, that's how he got up to commander,
Yeah.
Actually, I like the B plot, the nerd guy. I was dogging on it, but I like these I like the corny little stories. Like sometimes Star Trek is just about explaining basic things to people, like like it's a work training video or something. But I like those, like I like those little stories, like about you have characters across different levels. We've been dealing with that. We've been watching some Trek together about characters who are unsure of where they are, and I'm like, I feel like TNG, they could borrow some from Mendoc or Mordoc or Mendon or whatever the guy's name is, and
I don't know
pull
what
one of
the
these
fuck that
kind of
guy's name
stories.
is.
But yeah, okay, cool. Shall we move on to this? We got really some Riker coming up.
Yeah. These are the two Riker heavy, and kind of not Wesley heavy, but Wesley is like involved in both of these in like a weird way.
Next time on Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Today, I am a warrior.
Lieutenant Worf takes part in a savage Klingon ritual. Commander Riker faces a vicious feud with his father.
We could clear the air once and for all. You're on.
Each one confronts a do-or-die test of courage.
This fight is all we have left.
On Star Trek: The Next Generation.
So let's talk about this one. This is the one I added in, and I was like, this is the farthest like we're going in terms of like cheesiness. So hopefully Adrielle will accept it. But
well, it also felt like pretty like necessary, like because they talk about they talk about this Klingon tradition in previous episodes.
Yeah.
And now I get to like see it and like understand it a little bit. And this one is more about like Worf and his and his realization of himself. So it was a good one to have.
all right, well, let's jump into the Icarus Factor, TNG Season 2, Episode 14, from April 24th, 1989. We're almost to the 90s, which we are, that's what we're actually trying to connect this to. But story by David Assail, Robert McCullough, and directed by Robert Iskov. Yeah, I don't know. Do we want to do a plot synopsis for this one? I feel like it's a lot of there's one issue for both people the whole time, and it's sort of just about coming to terms. But McKenna, what's this episode about?
This is Daddy Issues, the episode.
Okay, yeah, there we go.
Yes.
Yeah. Riker is offered a captain position on another ship.
Yeah.
And
that's a classic
his dad
Riker
his dad comes to the Enterprise to kind of, I don't know what exactly.
Trying to make amends.
He's
I don't remember the
well,
details.
he has like an actual role, I guess. But
was he like evaluating something for the? I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't remember why he was.
I'm not totally clear on like what exactly. Yeah, he's trying to like, I don't know, transition him to this captainship, but it's really like all right, I gotta make amends with my son, who I haven't seen in 15 years.
He's estranged, from his dad or whatever. So, and then Worf's side of things.
Yeah, Wesley notices that Worf is grumpy. I don't know how he noticed, because Worf is always grumpy. But Worf is like grumpier than usual.
Yeah.
And
I think
trying to.
That's like actually a line again in the show. It's like he's grumpier than
I noticed
normally
is. Yeah.
So yeah, Wesley does some research, finds out that it's the 10-year anniversary of the Age of Ascension for Worf.
Yeah. And
Worf isn't around any Klingons to celebrate with.
No, and nor did he have one, right? Is that? I think that's something they find out, is he never had one properly or whatever.
Yeah, well, that was actually
yeah.
in a previous episode because he was, I think, in the first one that we watched, because the other Klingons were like, they were like dogging on him, and they were like, you know, were you ever Klingon or whatever? And he was like, yeah, I left long before the Age of Ascension, and I just sort of took note of that, and then that came back in this one. So he like never got to have the like coming of age like ritual of the Klingons. I mean, I think I got that right, but I think that's what the issue sort of was. I don't know what it actually sort of means in practice. I don't know if it's just sort of a personal thing for everybody, or if it like actually means something, like once you do it, then you are officially Klingon man or whatever. I don't know what it is.
I was just like, it's Klingon bar mitzvah, basically.
Yeah, that's kind of what it, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And so they do one for him, and that's kind of that plot. So yeah, plot wise,
in the holodeck.
Yeah. So what do we want to talk about? The Riker issues, the daddy issues first. Okay. Yeah. Kyle Riker is Riker's dad, played by Mitchell Ryan. He was actually an early contender to play Captain Picard on the show. But he's known for he was on the show Dark Shadows. He was important character in Dharma and Greg. He was also in Lethal Weapon, and
Sweet.
Just for me, he was in Halloween: The Curse of Michael Myers. So, but yeah, he gave a very like, and it's fitting. He's his two biggest credits are these shows he was in for a long time. Just like you see him, and you're like, this is a classic TV actor right here. This is the most television actor looking guy in a good way. He made me think of when we watched that Volcano made for TV movie, and you had like a lot of those guys who were just like, I don't know them at all, but I'm like, these guys put something on their forehead, they'd make a great alien in Star Trek.
It's true.
But yeah, I don't know. He's got beef with his dad, and they kind of work it out. And what do we think about the storyline?
Where it's his father is, well, they haven't seen each other in 15 years, but before that he was not, he was pretty absent,
but also a hard ass, apparently.
Yeah. Riker's mother died when he was young.
Yeah.
So, you know, his father's kind of been off doing his own thing. Was in a relationship with Pulaski.
Yeah, I love that stuff. That was
that was a great subplot. Was that was, and that she like they talk about it in the show, like Riker and Pulaski. You know, she's like, yeah, like I was like totally in love with your father, and he couldn't like she discloses like some of the trauma that the father has been through to Riker, and then helps Riker to kind of understand his dad more, even though his dad is like, the way it was written was like totally like 80s 90s, like just fucking shithole dad who was like well, if I was around for 13 years of your life, and if that's not enough, that's just too bad.
Yeah.
Like, okay, fucking dick, like what the hell. But then they kind of like work it out, and I think that like this was some of the weakest writing that like I've seen of any of the episodes. That particular the interaction between Riker and his father, I was like, there's a way that they could have like done this in a way that gave more humanity to both of these characters, because instead it was like just sort of like the dad who has like maybe PTSD, but then like misses the wife. Or like the mom who's dead. And at the end, he kind of says like, I carried this burden of your mother's death. And I like, every time I looked at you, I thought of her, and I couldn't, you know, he's traumatized by it. But he because he's such a hard ass, he like kind of can't, he can't like come to terms with it. And like, he's been absent for 15 years and doesn't really take accountability for that either. But I still like, I liked what they were trying to do, because it is an interesting, I don't know, it's an interesting plot device that you drop these characters into this situation where they're like they're together and one of them wants to just like totally avoid the situation. The other one's trying to reckon with it. So I liked what they were trying to do. But I was like, this whole thing could be like a whole movie instead of like a, 20 minutes of this episode. But I did really like the parts between Pulaski and Troy. Is that her name?
Yes. Those scenes whip. The best scenes, you got to give it up to those two. Like, they really... Well, I mean, honestly, Jonathan Frakes and Mitchell Ryan, as actors, I think did a good job of, like, selling kind of this cornball soap opera type material a little bit, I think. But those two you just mentioned really sold it. Like, those were the best scenes between them in that plot.
Right, because they're both, one was in love with the father and one's in love with the son, and they're talking to each other about like how fucked up they kind of are, and like how fucked it is to like be kind of in love with them, but like not really be able to be together. That was like, I thought that was like wonderful writing. I was like, see, that's where the real juice comes out here. And I also thought it was interesting that this episode there were two distinct plots happening that had nothing to do with each other, which was Worf and Riker. I was like, this is so strange that they like are. I mean, that's a classic like TV thing, but like I hadn't seen that as much with just like two side by side like Bob's Burgers style writing of an episode.
I love it. I love that shit.
Yeah. You get double the trouble, double the fun.
What did you think about this aspect, McKenna? This part of the story? The Riker side in general, yeah. We're holding off on Worf.
Okay. I like when they kind of set up his dad with like to talk to Troy about like trying to figure stuff out, and she's trying to be like, all right, like, what's going on? Like, how do you feel? How are you, like, trying to get this done? And, like, he kind of also, he's like, yeah, I don't want to do this. And, so she's like, you have to, like, meet halfway.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, he's almost doing the same thing with her as Riker is doing with him. And he makes like a comment about like, oh, we both have like good taste in women, and you're like, ooh,
Kyle.
Yeah.
I don't know about that, man. Like that was a weird comment to make right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they eventually decide to work it out with like an old game that they played.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
God, obviously that's something I talk about. I want to say real quick is just because we haven't talked about him much. We will a little bit more, but it happens in pretty much every episode, even if he's not really in it. But the power of Patrick Stewart to come and really tie a bow on it, where he comes in and he's talking to him about his personal struggle on whether he wants to take this promotion or not, and like he takes this and he polishes it up, and I'm like, this is like the most important decision anyone will ever have to make,
Mm-hmm.
like, but he's awesome in this episode, even though he's not really in it that much. So I wanted to shout Patrick Stewart out. We love him. But anyway, they settle it all. They settle it all the only way two dudes can, because apparently in this century, men still
they're juvenile.
There's a little bit of gender essentialism in Trek, but it's trying. And they break out of that, but sometimes they do come back to like they'll have an episode like, why do women want to look pretty and men want to look tough? And you're like, oh my god, there's really.
I know.
Anyway,
it's just so funny because then, like, meanwhile, there was that episode with Data's like child, which is like so like gender bendy and weird as well. They're like doing a lot of different, And I couldn't tell if like they were kind of making. I mean, it didn't show. It was not a positive it was not shown in a positive light that these two grown men like wanted to physically fight each other. You know what I mean? Like it was sort of, I don't know if they were making commentary on that, but it certainly was like, it wasn't cool that they were doing this. Everyone was like, this is lame, actually. Like, what are you guys doing?
But it does work, so you gotta give it to them.
It does work out, and I do think that was an interest. The way that they finished it was that like the dad cheats, and then Riker is like, wait, you've been like cheating the whole time. He's like, well, of course I've been cheating. Like I couldn't beat you otherwise. And I just thought that was such a good like a twist on it. You know what I mean? Like
they stuck the landing on the story. I gotta say,
yeah.
Mainly because the event that they participate in, the activity. Adrielle, you first. Do you remember the name of it?
No. All I could think of was that it was the like the Wii Sports thing where you like. That's what it reminded me of like when you have the two padded little like oars that you're fighting with, and then you have to knock your opponent off the thing in Wii Resort. But it's not that.
You remember the name?
On
Bojitsu.
Yeah.
they say like what are they like martial arts evolved or something. It's fucking ridiculous. Yeah. It's definitely like who wrote this? You're like, yeah, definitely a bunch of like old dudes in the late 80s came up with this.
Totally.
This is definitely what we're going to be doing in the future, I'm sure. Just an incredible visual, like them standing in the ring together with the
blindfolded.
Blindfolded, and also like no spectators, also, right? Like no one was in there; it's just the two of them, which was like really strange to see.
Everyone was really upset, you know, like they didn't want to be a part of this.
Like, oh, they're doing violence. Dumb. It's so silly.
Yeah. Doing violence.
Yeah, great scene. I love this activity. They should go to it more often, I think.
Does it ever come back? Is this a thing that ever returns in Star Trek?
Like I mentioned with the nerd aliens come back in more than just this, but they do it in Lower Decks, the new like animated comedy show, because they like to really reference like the goofier like things from TNG and DS9 and like Voyager, like the stuff that is like, oh yeah, remember that bad episode? Like they're like, no, it's part of the lore, and they're gonna like joke around about it. So yeah, the characters in the show,
that's awesome.
They do Anbo-jitsu at some point, like what's Mariner calls it? Oh, you're down for a little bit of Anbo?
That rules.
Yeah, it's a little, it's some dorky stuff, but yeah. Okay, anything else about, I think that aspect of the story is pretty well covered. Riker stays on the ship. We will see this type of storyline come up again. In fact, the next episode will be kind of the Riker episode that deals with that sort of thing.
I think it kind of emphasizes how important the Enterprise is. You know, it's their flagship.
It's the biggest ship. You know,
it's
the best
ship.
It's
exciting ship to be on. Mm-hmm. So even though he was offered a position as captain elsewhere, it was like, it's going to be more exciting to be first officer.
And he's like with people he like has started to form a bond with and stuff like that. It's like, hey, you don't have to be ambitious. And look, he'll be a captain someday. He's captain material, right? Yeah.
as evidenced by him on the Klingon ship.
Yeah, he's got it. He's got what it takes. Yeah. Okay. So the Worf aspect, like I said, it's just a lot of like, okay. Should we just cut to the Age of Ascension, right? Is there anything? I don't really recall. It's been a while since I watched it, so I don't remember the scenes in the lead up, what they really do, right? They just...
Yeah, it's just like Wesley doing research and inviting people to take part in it.
He's doing cultural research.
They set up a holodeck program.
This is really interesting because it shows you who Worf's like friends are, because you don't always see like... You know, you don't always see who he hangs out with. So he hangs out with Wesley, Who else is there? Data?
Which is, it's really weird that Wesley is such a big part of this. Yeah.
I'm not sure.
O'Brien.
O'Brien is my favorite one. Yeah. Doesn't O'Brien have a funny line? When do they play poker? It's in the next one. Okay, never mind.
Yeah, it's the next one, yeah.
Yeah, O'Brien's there, and then Pulaski. She would, of course, be there, right? She's there, right? Yeah.
Does she actually? Yeah.
Yeah, she's there. So I like his group of friends are kind of like not the main characters of the show, which is kind of fun too.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, yeah. Anyway, I don't know. They set up the room for. What do we think about this ritual?
I'm sure it's great for Klingon, but it just does not sound like a fun time.
Yeah. It's like 10 Klingons with like big laser clubs that then like tasers that shock you, and then you make it to the end of the line of them, and then that's it basically.
Yeah, and he's like, thanks, and they're all like looking at him like, whoa, okay.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, at the end he's like, thank you. It's kind of funny.
It's a little weird. Yeah, I don't know. What do we make of this? I'm kind of like, I'm not like totally like crazy about this episode or anything, but what do we think about Worf's character through this episode?
Yeah, I don't know that I don't know. He realizes that he has people on the Enterprise that care about him.
Yeah.
That's like the main
That's
takeaway,
the big takeaway.
I think. Yeah,
that's right. That is the big takeaway. I feel like I'm in English class and I'm like, the teacher's asking a question I hadn't really thought about here.
Well, I'm asking because I'm like, I don't know. We almost didn't include this one because I don't feel like it's that important, but it was fun to watch. Like, that's
totally fun.
Again, with this show, like, I feel like the bad episodes, this isn't even a bad episode, but you know what I mean? Like, less important ones are always you get a good little bit of television in there. Nice bit of entertainment, so.
Character building, you get a chance to get to know the characters and like them. Maybe
we don't need that much time. Yeah, give us a little 20 minutes of some of these guys hanging out. I'm into it.
Yeah, and it's just sort of like knowing that he didn't like get to do it before, that like now he gets to do it, and I kept coming back to, I'm like, why is Wesley in here? Now I understand the Wesley thing, but I was like, what is he? It's just strange that he the like outsized role that he plays in this whole scheme is really like surprising. It seems like I kept missing Data. I was like, why aren't Data and Geordi in here? And then I was like, no, no, because they would have added too much. We just needed it to be about Worf and to have everybody focused on him, because otherwise, Geordi and Data would have been, like mobbing on the sidelines and giving too much information. We didn't need that. We needed it to just be about Worf and doing something nice for his friends, doing something nice for him, and that's it.
Yeah, O'Brien might not have even been like who they wrote in the script, for all we know. They could have just been like, okay, we need someone who's not like the main cast to come in. Let's call Colum. Let's get him in here. And
yeah, call him up.
Next time on Star Trek: The Next Generation, Lieutenant Worf is reunited with his lost love.
I've never had such strong feelings toward anyone.
Two brave warriors test the courage of their private passions.
We are mated.
I am not going to become your wife!
Now, they must join forces to prevent a Klingon attack.
Drop your shields.
On Star Trek: The Next Generation.
The last two episodes, I want to make sure we have some time to talk about those, because these are heavy hitters in the Trek world, so at least in the world of Worf. So let's get to them. Let's talk about The Emissary, TNG episode 20 of season 2, from June 26, 1989, by Richard Manning, Hans Beimler, and Thomas H. Calder. It is based on an unpublished Calder story, which was then made into a script by Manning and Beimler, who were producers on the 3rd season of TNG. They also wrote many episodes of Star Trek. Beimler has written has 36 credits between TNG and Deep Space Nine. So good. We got this is and then Cliff Bull directed. He's directed 42 episodes of Star Trek. So yeah. Okay. So what's the deal here, McKenna?
So the Enterprise finds out that there is a Klingon ship that is has just come out of stasis from pre-Alliance time, back when the Federation and the Klingons were at war. Mm-hmm. So an emissary is sent to their ship to help them with the situation, and find out that she is a half Klingon, half human, who has some history with Worf.
Some history.
Some wink wink history.
The plot thickens.
So Worf is assigned to work with her to come up with a solution to how to deal with this Klingon ship that thinks that they're still at war with the Federation. And there's a lot of tension between...
Do you have any professional reasons why you don't want to do this?
Yes, yeah, between the characters. At first he says he doesn't want to work with her, but he has to. Because, they're professionals. They get into some arguments. They can't really figure out a solution at first because they're just argumentative about their personal history. Mm-hmm. And then eventually this what is it, Kalar?
Yeah.
Yes, that's the half Klingon, half human. She's kind of part of the Klingons, but she leans more on her human side, I'd say. Mm-hmm. Temperament wise, she's kind of I don't want to I gotta keep my Klingon temper under control. But she wants she gets upset after arguing with Worf, and she goes to the holodeck. We got another holo suite.
Yes.
Battle. So she goes there and she picks out Worf's workout program.
Training program.
Yeah.
Calisthenics. So 80s.
yeah. And she's beating up some enemies in there.
Skeleton monsters and whatnot. Yeah.
Pretty cool
what
stuff.
Anyone would put. I mean, I guess that's what I would put in my training program.
Yeah, those are some Zelda-ass enemies that she was fighting.
She beats them pretty handily, and she's and Worf shows up, and she's that was too easy. And then he goes, level 2.
Yeah, that's so awesome.
And so they work together for this next level, and then
they bond.
Yes, they bond.
Well,
things get heated.
But we go to commercial and they come back and they're fully clothed again.
So. Yes, something happened during the commercial break.
Yeah, and then she's some calisthenics are more fun than others, or whatever she says.
Here we get a classic Worf moment where he's all about the Klingon tradition.
The tradition, yeah.
And he's all right, we gotta become, man and wife now. Yeah. You gotta take the oath. And she's screw that. I'm a human.
Yeah.
And he's you're a Klingon too. Mm-hmm. And it's very cool. Yeah, I guess plot now we can discuss later.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're kind of like mad at each other again.
But they get over it.
Yeah, they kind of have to combine forces again when this Klingon ship comes back into the picture, and Worf is like, let me pretend to be captain to talk to them, to be like, hey, we're not at war anymore. So he's captain, she's kind of pretending to be first officer, I guess. So he talks to him. He kind of has to be, show him who's boss a little bit. Like, I won't take any like insubordination from you, even though you're from the past. And
like this Captain
eventually
Worf,
that gets him to chill out. And
I liked Captain Worf. That was cool. I like that we've seen Captain Worf and Captain Riker in these episodes. It's pretty cool.
These are things to appreciate later on down the road, I will say. Just okay.
Yeah, and then she is sent off to go kind of, what's the word I'm looking for?
Do emissary things.
Diffuse? No.
She's gonna escort them back to Kronos.
Yeah,
the
to
Klingon
kind of
homeworld.
I don't want to say assimilate, because that's like, that has a very different connotation in the Star Trek world, but reincorporate them into a current society.
They'll be fine. It's not too different. They're just like still angry. They're just
but yeah, they have like a final Worf and Kalar have kind of a final confrontation where she's just like, are you just gonna let me leave without saying anything?
They leave it on kind of a bittersweet,
yeah,
it's not over type thing, but
still like we have unfinished business.
We have our differences, but we care about each other.
He says, I will not be complete without you. That's the final line of the episode. It's like, my God.
Yeah. Hold on to your butts on that one, but
cool. Not knowing what happens, I was like, oh man, Worf is just a little baby sometimes,
He's just like that's what's great is like when you watch this, you're like, oh, he's just some guy,
Yeah, he's just like, oh man, he's so maybe naive's not the right word, but he seems sort of naive. Like, you're like, oh man, Worf, you know what year it is? It's 1989. Okay, she's not gonna marry you just because you guys had sex. Okay, it's not gonna happen.
And this they straight up do a super episode that leans hard into this. But that's something I like about Worf is he, other than like straight up like fascists, like Worf is like the most like conservative character in Star Trek, you know what I mean? Like, and that like maybe not the most, but you know what I mean? Like he's the one in like the main shows where they do explore storylines like that, where like it is him dealing with like, I guess like being hung up on old values and things like that. So I don't know, I like that. I don't think Worf, I don't know. I like him as a character. It's not always like aspirational, like.
Yeah, that's
just
really
like
good.
a guy.
Yeah, maybe it helps him in this episode to be kind of stuck in the past, as he's trying to communicate with other Klingons who are stuck in the past.
So that's what's interesting. Adrielle, what did you think? I thought what was most interesting was Worf's conception of like what to do about Klingons and what they're like and how to deal with them, and Kalar's, because Worf, like I think he has even though what Kalar thinks it's more like the traditional view of Klingons, Worf is a lot more like optimistic about what they could do with them. But how did this come across to you as someone like, again, who's like, I think by this point you said you were starting to click with like the concept of like Klingons and stuff.
Totally. Well, I don't know if this is quite an answer or not, but I thought that the plot device of having Worf, who is full Klingon but was raised by humans and is constantly jockeying between both worlds, and then someone who is literally half human and half Klingon, who is not really jockeying between the worlds, but just embodies all of it in a way that is very clearly uncomfortable. And how he is like, again, yeah, like both more optimistic about it and also like more kind of wrong-headed about it as well, because he has this, like we were talking about, this idea of like what Klingons and Klingon culture like is and what it has to be and what it means, because I think I'm reading into it, but because he's like sort of removed from it in a way, whereas she, seems to have, I don't know if we talk about like what she was like, how she was raised, like if she was raised like around humans or around Klingons, but she has sort of a more negative view of it, but also a more sort of like practical, perhaps a more well-adjusted view of it, a less aspirational view of it. So I thought that both of them had these kind of complicated understandings of their own race or heritage or whatever, and cultures and traditions. And neither of them were really like, it was complicated for both of them. It didn't seem like it was unsettled, and, and their relationship is also unsettled. And I thought it was effective that they didn't, we didn't need to delve too much into what their relationship really was. I feel like it was just a nexus for them to, it was like a clash of the two sort of like cultures and the clash of these two people. So I don't know. I thought the writing was really, really good in this episode. Like just the concept of having these two people together to like be talking and thinking through past and present ideals and Klingon and human ideas, and male and female ideas as well, which is sort of which was an interesting aspect of this whole thing as well. So this was one of my favorite ones. And also she rocks. She was, I looked her up because I was like, I must like know this person, but I don't think I do. but she owned. She was fucking awesome.
Susie Plaxton, who has played 4 different Star Trek characters. So
hell yeah.
Yeah. I think I like, you can kind of get the idea of probably what their beef was from before, I think that's a like point to the writing, is like you pretty much can infer a lot of what might have happened between them. What'd you make of all this?
Definitely agree on the human, half human, half Klingon, alongside the Klingon raised by humans. That's cool, a really dynamic. Cool thing going on. And I said earlier that a lot of times Worf seems like a little self-conscious about his Klingonness, his identity as a Klingon, where like even though she identifies more with the human side, she seems so confident and self-assured.
Yes.
And she's they have very different personalities, which is fun to see. He's grumpy again, and she's just like the complete opposite of that.
She pushes his buttons, which is fun too.
Yeah.
Which I think
and definitely
Worf likes.
like in a different way than other Klingons, where like other Klingons are like, you're not behaving like Klingon enough. But she's like, you're going too hard with the Klingon tradition stuff.
Yeah. It would. It would be like trying to like tell someone who's like, like Thomas Jefferson or something, and you're like, look, totally. It's not. Don't really worry about that too much.
Yeah, and she's such a vamp, So she's like, sort of, I don't know. She embodies kind of like this like freedom from tradition in a way. A lot of, because she's so like tall and self-assured and like sort of like sexy and Like
she's
just, she's this like archetype of like the vamp kind of character, which is just cool to see her as like, she's sort of unbothered and uncomplicated in this way because, as you said, McKenna, she's so like self-assured, which is really the opposite of Worf, who's just sort of like a bit, anxious is probably a 21st century way of saying it, and I don't think he's anxious, but he has like this, he's kind of has this like roiling like self-doubt that is, I think, pretty apparent in some aspects of his personality, so and one other thing I wanted to point out was that I was like, okay, you guys clearly have history, but like maybe you didn't like have sex before because now you're trying to like do the ritual and so clearly you didn't before, but you still have all this baggage. So it was just, I thought it was interesting because like as soon as I thought I understood what was going on, I was like, oh, wait a minute. Like, I don't think I really understand their relationship, but I thought it was cool.
There's a great YouTube video called Denying Worf. And it's just like compilations of every time Worf wants to take the more like aggressive option and like Picard or whoever's like, no. But then it cuts to this scene where he's like saying those words in Klingon. It's like out of context too. So it's so funny. And she just goes, I will not take the oath. Damn, Worf.
Denying Worf.
Yeah, don't look at it. There might be spoilers. I don't know.
All right, I won't.
I actually don't know. I have no idea. It's probably not that important.
I watched the one of Riker sits down, and that's a pretty good compilation.
Oh yeah,
so I got
over the chair,
the straddle. Yeah. Okay, I have some fun little things. Like the poker scene was cool. I like that we had that. Again, there's Data's got the visor on. Very good.
He looks so awesome.
I bend.
Yeah,
I bet. Yeah. And there's another line, like I guess O'Brien's the best guy because he did this in the Data ep too, where he's always the one to like react to the foolishness at the poker table. I don't know, he always has some funny line, but good stuff there. I also the holodeck program, we talked about that. That's fun. But it's also something we see in like a previous episode that I don't think, Adrielle, you've seen, but like it's kind of implied that Klingon mating rituals, there's a little bit of like some consensual like violence it seems involved, some a little bit of that type of stuff going on, so that's interesting. I guess same thing with the bar mitzvah thing, if you were just like come up with the Klingon mating ritual, I'd be like they fight, I don't know.
Yeah.
So it's not surprising, but
yeah, the rituals always involve pain with Klingons.
Yeah, they love pain. Best scene, though, is when Worf decides to bring Data as, like, a buffer.
Yeah.
He's, like, his buffer friend. He's, like, that was a very relatable scene, like, in a lot of situations you're like, I don't think I can be in the room with this person. Like, let's bring like the most like neutral guy I know who like no one can disagree, like get mad at, let's bring Data.
Data. Yeah. I would bring Data all over the place if I could. I think this was maybe my favorite one of all of them that we watched. I don't know. It's hard to pick, but this one was one of my favorites. I just thought it was, I really liked the character dynamics. I thought that it was, I liked the idea of this ship that's coming out of like cryo sleep and thinks it's the past. That's really cool.
Oh yeah, that's very fun.
And I really liked her. I think she really carried didn't carry the episode, but she just really made it work well. So
that's what's great about Star Trek is like there's so many episodes where it's just like, we got this guest actor on, and it's just kind of oftentimes it'll just be like, like about a one-off character, and like they're the main character. This is more Worf based, but they do that sometimes where it's like, here's this guest star, and we're gonna let them shine. And I think she, even though she kind of shares it with Worf, she kills it. So
next time on Star Trek: The Next Generation.
You are a traitor.
Worf is accused of treason and faces a Klingon death penalty.
It is a good day to die.
His enemies are hiding the truth that could free him.
You will not execute a member of my crew.
Now, Captain Picard must risk his life to defend Worf's innocence on Star Trek: The Next Generation.
This is my personal favorite out of these, though that's kind of a lukewarm take, so I'm not gonna, Okay, Sins of the Father. TNG, episode 3. No, I keep saying episode. TNG, season 3, episode 17. First aired March 19th, 1990. We're in the 90s now. Teleplay and stores. Okay, it's written by Ronald D. Moore, W. Reed Moran, and Drew Deegan. Ronald Moore, who is one of the writers, after this episode, he kind of became the writer of many of the Klingon-based episodes. So in our future, Worf episodes, we're going to be kind of talking about him a lot. He has 64 Trek credits. He's like the Klingon dude. He also kind of was responsible for the modern reboot of Battlestar Galactica. You know that? Yeah. Okay. So anyway, we he's cool. And it's directed by Les Landau, who directed 59 episodes of Star Trek, including he was first assistant director on the pilot, Data Lore, and Elementary, My Dear Data. Not the main director, but the assistant director. So we've seen his work. We like him. Okay. This one, gosh, this is very plot dense, I feel like. But good, McKenna. Just what do you think? What's the story here?
Yeah, I think the main ideas are yeah. So this is where the officer exchange program comes back.
The redux of the officer program.
There's a Klingon who is going to be first officer on the Enterprise. Kern, yes.
Okay, Kern. Let's just say it now. Get out of the way. The god, the legend, the icon, Tony Todd. He's played many iconic Star Trek characters. He's also Candyman. He's a horror and sci-fi legend. We love to see him. Hell yeah. Okay. And he's Kern.
He fucking owns.
He whips. Great actor. Yeah. Okay.
Sorry. So, Kern is, being a little hard on everyone. The crew is man, he's just being so I feel like, Wesley's like, oh, I'm doing everything perfectly and he still hates me. But then they're like, oh, he's being nice to Worf though.
It's so funny.
And this irritates the crap out of Worf.
I like that scene where he's like, is that acceptable to you, Mr. Worf? It's really pushing his buttons.
It's very funny. So there are, a multitude of scenes where he's, kind of, being nice to Worf, or, singling him out a little bit. And eventually Worf, finds him in his quarters, and he's like, "What's the deal?"
Yeah, he's like, "What's your fucking deal? Why are you antagonizing me?"
And then this is where it's revealed that Kern is Worf's brother.
It's this is what I would expect from my brother.
Yeah, because Worf is fine.
Shit,
I'm angry. Yeah. Kern has a different motivation for coming aboard the ship, which is that their father has been accused of basically helping organize the attack on Khitomer,
yeah.
Khitomer, yeah, which is where Worf's family died.
Mm-hmm.
So as the eldest brother, Worf is the one who has to go dispute this.
Yeah.
So the rest of the episode is basically them going to the Klingon homeworld, and Worf has to argue that his father has not been, or his father has not done what they've accused him of doing. Mm-hmm. And it kind of becomes like a sort of investigation. The rest of the episode, they're looking at like communications, and they find a woman that another survivor from Kittamar who they talk to.
Yes, K-List.
Yes.
I remember that one, but
loved her.
Curran is attacked, and he's kind of like Worf's like backup.
It's Chadich.
Yeah. So Worf needs a new guy.
It's part of the ritual. Okay. You get like a homie. Yeah.
So he chooses Picard.
Hell yeah! I fucking loved this.
Yeah, and then they have to go before the Klingon leaders and prove that Mogh is not dishonorable.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And they sort of do.
Yeah.
But they can't get away with it. Yeah, is it Duras, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Duras is the guy who's like giving them grief. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah. This is like Mogh's like greatest adversary, or yeah. They're sworn enemies.
Yeah. And so they find out that it was actually his father that sold them out, but their family is like a powerful family amongst the Klingons. So they were basically like, look, Worf, we didn't even expect you to show up. We were kind of hoping that since you were like living off in the Federation, you wouldn't care. We can't reveal this to the public because it will cause a massive rift in Klingon society. And, so no, it's not going to happen. And so Worf chooses to accept disaccommodation, dishonor, whatever it is.
Yeah. So, he was originally like supposed to have been executed.
Yeah.
So he, kind of, he doesn't clear his name.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have to face the execution consequences.
Yeah. Which is like that's like a political move. There's some political stuff here with it's like even Worf kind of like it's a power play to like put a representative of the Federation as your guy, to support you. So like they can't just execute a Federation, guy. I feel like it would be, well, Picard wouldn't probably allow that unless like there were, well, I guess there's some legal precedent, but anyway, it's a real rip-roaring trial thriller episode. What do you think, Adrielle?
It's a bit like the Data episode where he's on trial or whatever, then Riker, whatever that one was. I don't remember the name of the episode, but I remember the episode clearly. It was another like courtroom drama kind of an episode. Although this one was much more, it was less of a courtroom drama and more of like a political drama, and how they're like, sorry, Worf, we kind of expected you to just be like the patsy and like your family to like, we're trying to like brush this whole thing under the rug and like blame your dead father, and you're not even here, so who cares, and then the brother is also in the Federation, right? That's how he's in the officer exchange program.
Well, no, he's just he's a Klingon ship. Like the Klingons are like they're not really part of the Federation. They're more allied with them, but the exchange program will go across,
I gotcha.
Like,
Okay,
with their allies or whatever. So yeah,
I see. So he is more embedded in Klingon society, right? Mm-hmm. That's the thing.
But secret, like they don't know he is, the son of Mogh or whatever.
Right. I mean, it's like this also like could have been its own like standalone movie of stuff because it's like so interesting. The conceit of the episode is so interesting. This idea of like you have to like defend your father. And then you have to like go back through all the records to like try to figure it out if it's like actually, because everyone else is kind of like, well, let's actually look into this because of course Worf doesn't think that his dad did it, but like we don't really know. And then they had to find the old lady. I love the Klingon old lady. I want more Klingon geriatric women. That was awesome. And I really liked the Klingon like court drama. It was very fun. I like very, very Klingon, as I'm now recognizing. One of the big takeaways I felt like, because this was the last one that I watched, and I know that there's a lot longer stories about Worf going forward, but like I was like, oh my god, like this is a cliffhanger. This ends with him like basically being like extricated from the society that he is like always trying to like get closer to and like become a part of again, because he was taken out of it at such a young age, and now he's being like officially patsied and cut off from it. So like, it just feels like, oh, this is a trauma that's going to come back, like Worf has to take the fall and like be officially like exiled or whatever. I mean, I don't know if he actually was, but like everyone like turns their back on him in a very performative, dramatic way. So yeah, that was a big cliffhanger for me. I was like, wait a minute.
I do like apologize.
Is no, don't. I would. It's only a cliffhanger if you're very engaged. So this was good. But yeah, and plus like it probably like it. I'm sure it comes back, but it didn't. It felt like a very complete episode, and so it was a very complete story. But yeah. Why was this one your favorite? Is it because Candyman was in it?
I mean, no, back to what I was saying early on, this is the episode that really makes me think of that idea of like the values that Worf holds, that he holds high, that are Klingon, like are not reflective of what their society actually practices. And like you can, and like, of so many stories like this in our own world where like everyone knows what they're doing is wrong, and they know like they can't tell anyone, and they know it betrays like everything they like stated beliefs, and I just like that sort of thing. I like Worf, like, well, I also like it because it is like part one of like a story arc with Worf and like this is like, yeah, it's definitely a cliffhanger. Like it's not the next episode, it's resolved like, or like, addressed like later, which is what I like about the show. They come back to things, but that's what's my favorite. It's more strongly tied to like the overall story that this is starting to tell. But I like all those background episodes. I think they really helped with this, and they were good episodes in their own right. But McKenna, what do you think?
I like the dynamic between Kern and Worf. I feel like we've seen a lot more like adversarial Klingon interactions with Worf, and here it starts out that way, but then like once it's revealed that they're brothers, it's like, okay, they must have like we got like a bond. Yeah, I love it. It's cool to see Worf, being buddies with another Klingon instead of kind of being at odds.
That's like a cool like positive or like Klingon value representation, right? Like the strength, the like caring about your family, and like your honor. I mean, there's the downside of your dishonor can last seven generations.
Yeah.
You thought that was a little extreme.
Yeah, I was like, dang, that's a lot of generation. Like,
and
that
also
seventh generation
specific.
is not even gonna know like what happened.
I also like the episode because it starts as a fun episode. You think it's gonna be like Riker when he's in the exchange, or even like you might think like, oh, this is gonna be another, like it has a similar like almost opening to how the first episode opened, where like these Klingons come and they're pushing Worf, and you find out they have another agenda. It starts off where it's like, okay, this could be a romp, or it could be like exciting, like this Klingon's up to something, and it totally, when he reveals like, I'm your brother, and actually like there's this like serious thing that could affect us and like the state of like our society. It's almost like it's sort of like a Harry Potter thing, where it's like Worf finds out he's actually like about to become like one of the most important people in this society that he like has wished he could become a part of, but not in the Harry Potter whimsical way. It's like actually
in
it's
a really
bad
way.
Yeah, we actually all hate you. Turns out,
and your father.
And you
your
love
dead father.
You want to be like us, and we all hate you, and we all don't represent the. Anyway, that's why it gets me. I love it.
Yeah, it's good.
But yeah, they like it starts off, and like I remember there's like a dinner scene, right, where like Kern is like being kind of a dick to everybody. It's very delightful. I think a lot of good fun before we get to the serious stuff. So the opening sets the tone well.
I know they're eating like Thanksgiving turkey, and he's like, "This is bland, and I can't eat it. It's nasty."
you cook your food. Ugh.
I love the caviar part, because it's like I've never had caviar, but it just doesn't sound like it's like, the best, worth spending like all that money on this like these little fish eggs. I'm like, it can't be that good. And he just takes it, grabs it with his hand and like smears it on the turkey.
Yeah. I felt bad for Picard, because he's like the replicator doesn't do it justice. So like, this is the real stuff like from Earth, and he's like, cool. Gross.
I think we can relate to that.
Oh, man.
You're trying to like share something with someone, and they're just not like interested at all, and you're like, ugh.
I know. Well, I thought it was funny because like after seeing all the Klingon food, I was like, of all the human food, like caviar might be the closest thing to the Klingon food.
Yeah.
So I was like, dang it. He didn't even like that.
I would have started with a crunch wrap or something.
Give him a root beer.
Root beer, yeah. That's good. That's good.
A deli sandwich.
And I like the beyond Kern. I like kind of like the cast of guest characters. I like Durasi's whatever. He's okay. He's kind of a shit heel a little bit, but I really like Kempek or whatever. Is that his name? He's like the head of the Klingon Council. Mm-hmm. I don't have that actor's name offhand, but I thought he's really good.
He's the one who first like approaches Worf, and he's like, "You didn't have to come here and do this."
Yeah,
like it wouldn't have affected your Federation life.
He's trying to like kind of talk him out of it.
Yeah, before it even like takes off.
And he's such a like, he's like a corrupt, but like he seems miserable, you know what I mean, like that type of figure of just like, I'm in this position and I'm just kind of riding with it, and I'm gonna die and my legacy will probably be horrible and I suck. And I liked his sort of, he was just like, I don't know. We see plenty of politicians that make you think of this guy, but there's sort of a humanness to him too, where you kind of like not relate, but he just feels real to me. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he feels very like tired and resigned, and so embedded in his own like drama, like of the issue at hand, that like he to like. It's like total disregard for Worf and obviously like the whole family and whatever, and like totally disregarding how like when he was like, this wouldn't have affected your Federation life, like I was like, oh, that hurts Worf, because Worf, is again straddling both of these things and like trying to be like a good Klingon, or like trying to, live the Klingon ideals and stuff. And so for this guy to be like, it wouldn't have affected your Federation life, I was like, that's the wrong thing to say, bro. Not to Worf.
And he also has like so apparently some romantic history with Kayla.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, yeah, not really, because she's like, I don't like you.
He was always interested in her. I like that. It's just like a little bit of world building there,
Yeah.
She keeps
Yeah,
just
the
being
old
like,
lady.
you're fat, or whatever.
Yeah.
She's not into him. I don't know. It's just a nice little bit of world building there. But of all the, not a guest character, but yeah, Picard in this episode is awesome too. He was who you would want at your side, and like the scenes where like he's talking to him and he like agrees to do it. It's such a like moment where
I know, they're like heartwarming.
Oh yeah, I don't know. It's so good. They're Patrick Stewart again. He's in his prime here. He's killing it. I love it.
I know, he's so perfect. He's just effervescing the whole time. He's so good. I don't know how he pulls off that haircut, but he really does.
And then yeah, I love the ending scene where they all like turn their back to him or whatever. It's so hard,
Yeah.
That was my hope, is like by the time we would be done with these, you'd be like, God damn,
Yeah, exactly. I was like, shit. This is just the tip of the iceberg now. Now we're really cooking with gas.
The one thing I thought is like, even though he's been, kind of exiled, it's like this is like the moment where I think he feels most part of Klingon culture.
Yeah.
Like where he's just like melds into it the best. Like it's no longer like I'm studying Klingons and I know all the Klingon stuff. It's like he's being a Klingon in this episode.
He has no choice, but he chooses to he has no choice in whether he's involved, but I like that he chooses to, I'm going to represent what I believe, I'm going to fight for what's right.
Yeah. That's a very good point.
Till the end where he's like, I'm not. But it's like, well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I won't say, but.
Yeah, I feel like now I need a second playlist of more of the trajectory of what goes on.
I guess, yeah, it does end.
Does the brother come back?
Yeah.
Or is he dead?
Yeah. Yeah,
he comes back.
Comes back, yeah. But Tony Todd, we'll see him a handful of times for sure.
Hell yeah.
Not like a ton, but when he's there, you feel it. Well, cool. This has been a good primer. I think with editing we'll get it under 2 hours, so it won't be crazy long for people. But I hope. This is a pretty exhaustive dive into like Worf and Klingons. Now you know all about them, Adrielle. What are you thinking? What are you thinking about it?
I think this is a beautiful primer, a great crash course, a Klingon 101, if you will. I think Klingons could have had their own spin-off shows, frankly. So I'm kind of surprised that they did not, because it seems like they could really they could get a lot of mileage out of the Klingons if someone was so inclined, I think. But
True.
Or just like a Klingon centric, situation. But I love it. I love Worf. Are there other Klingons who become the main characters in the same way that he is, or is he like the big one?
Yeah. Well, he goes on. He's in DS9 as well. So, he's there. He's kind of the main Klingon dude. But, Voyager has like a half human, half Klingon character. And I guess that's kind of really. But Klingons are all abound. But I think those are kind of the main. Those are kind of the main ones for sure. I think we're.
Well, I loved it. I'm fully on board with Worf. He's much more complicated than our pal Data, who is also complicated in his own way. But but yeah, and I feel very, very lucky. If there's anyone listening who is new to Star Trek, great episode list. Highly recommend from me, who has experienced it firsthand.
Yeah, if any of these sound interesting, check them out. McKenna, you did a great job, like, explaining them all too. So I feel like you don't have to have seen them. But if you liked what you heard, I think I would go check them out. You have anything else you want to say about Klingons, Worf, Star Trek, or our journey?
Good intro. I feel like we're just getting started with Klingons.
We are. Yeah. We'll be back for more.
Yes.
Our next episode that we're gonna do down the road here is kind of actually what I was thinking about, just initially just doing one episode in our next chunk, because it's kind of we're now gonna hit kind of like I think it's the iconic episode of The Next Generation. It's kind of like the most well known. It kind of defines like the vibe of Star Trek in the 90s. It really kicks off the era of like when it's like really strong. So in our next episode, we're gonna kind of veer between two things that partially interconnect at one point, but we're gonna learn more about Q, the character Q, who I think you might have some familiarity with from you were watching some of the pilot, right? Does he show up yet? Okay.
I don't. Well, I know who Q is, but I don't. But barely.
We're gonna kind of we'll come back to the pilot later on, but I'll give you kind of an intro to what his deal sort of is, and if you want to watch that, you can too, because it's good setup. But we're gonna learn about him, but more importantly, we're going to encounter the Borg, which is that's kind of like the Star Trek is still in a lot of ways like living in the shadow of the Borg, the character, and specifically this episode is kind of the peak of the Borg, the main one we're going to talk about. So stay tuned for that. Resistance is futile. This is when Star Trek's really going to be happening now. So, dude,
hell yeah, this is exciting. It's also exciting from just being a bit as an outsider to hear. It's always great to hear both of your perspectives on it, but it's just fun when it's like, oh, this is one that's important for external reasons as well. It's like kind of kicks stuff off, and it's emblematic of the series, so that's kind of fun.
Yeah, this is something that's probably more broken into mainstream somewhat, which is again why we're kind of stuck in, because they're like, what do people know? They know the Borg. Let's bring them back. Type thing we're in now. But anyway, we're living in the good times now though, so we're not going to worry about that.
Nice.
Okay, Adrielle, thanks for joining us. What do you say? Let's beam out.
Yeah.
Yeah, put me on the little thing and let me become pixels.
This is Goo to Enterprise, 3 to beam up. And as always, we want to give a special thank you to our $5 Millennium Star tier patrons over on our Patreon. So thank you Darren Hupke, Infection Form, Jeremy Aber, Kiefer, Nico Sylvian, Paul aka Quaid, and Underline V. Thank you so much, and if you would like to support us, check us out over at patreon.com/flashback64.